those of you who've just tuned into Off the Record and missed my first part of this chat with best-selling writer Ken Follett, who's in Chennai for the launch of his latest book, Fall of Giants, do go to YouTube and you'll find this interview on Ndtv Hindu, Off the Record, Ken Follett, Anuradha Anand. I was asking Ken whether he's ever toyed with the idea of becoming a historian, because more and more you're writing about political and historical events.
Well, certainly history interests me and fascinates me and inspires me. But I have never considered actually being a historian, because what I like is to take the history. For example, think about the women's suffrage movement and say, why did those women feel so strongly about this? And to imagine their lives and to figure out what in their lives made them so angry that they were prepared to go on marches and demonstrations, to go to jail, to be beaten up by the police for the sake of this ideal. Because political campaigns and revolutions and so on don't fall from the sky. They come from people's ordinary everyday lives. I have two suffragettes in Fall of Giants. There's a working class girl, Ethel, and a wealthy upper class woman, Maud, and they are allies in the suffragette movement. Ethel is angry about the way she was treated when she became pregnant. She discovered that she had no rights because she was a woman. Maud is angry because she had no education. She's smarter than her brother, but he went to university and she's not allowed to. So they're angry about their lives. So for me, the abstract history is not as interesting as the everyday lives of these people, which form the roots of those political changes.
Now, going back to your masterclass page in your website, you also advise aspiring writers to keep reading while they're writing. So, for example, if you're writing a love story, to read other love stories. And well, that's the first time I'm hearing something like that, because people usually sort of cut themselves off because they don't want to be distracted and they want to be cocooned in their own little world, as it were.
I don't think it matters if a real writer imitates something. By the time it's passed through my imagination, it will be completely different from the original. You know, there was in Cairo during the Second World War, there was a spy ring. And two novels have been written about that spy ring. One is The Key to Rebecca, which is mine, and the other is The English Patient by Michael Ndtv. You could hardly have two more different novels. And Michael Ndtv came up to me the night he won the Booker Prize, and he said, "Do you realise that my book is based on the same real-life spy ring as yours is?" And I said, "Yes, I had realised that." But because his sensibility is completely different from mine, we've both taken a true story and done something completely different with it, and that's how it works. So I'm never worried about plagiarism in that sense. And I think any time you're writing a love story, you should read Romeo and Juliet. Because in a way, all love stories are Romeo and Juliet. Two people love one another, but if they get together and get married and live happily ever after, there's no story. So there's only a story if there's a problem. So Romeo and Juliet had this problem, but every pair of lovers in a novel has a problem. One of them's married, or one of them's too old or too young, or whatever it is. So that's the love story. They're gazing at one another across a crowded room. They're longing to be together, but they can't. That's why there's a story. If there wasn't a problem, there'd be no story.
Now, you've made a permanent home, it seems, atop that perch on the bestseller lists as a thriller writer. So, and of course, all your other books are always on top of the bestseller list. So, as a writer of fiction like that, plot, character, conflict, and resolution, are these what a bestseller make, or should style be sacrificed at the altar of these?
Well, certainly. The kind of novel you've described, plot, character, conflict, resolution, this is actually the 19th century tradition. This is the tradition of Jane Austen and Dickens and Balzac and Flaubert. But of course, you're quite right, most of the books on today's bestseller lists are written in that tradition. There's another tradition, the 20th century experimental novel, doesn't interest me very much and is not that interesting to the buyer of books. Most people like a traditional story.
You know why I asked you this question? Because I read your critique of Hilary Mantel's
Yes.
Wolf Hall in your website, and in your analysis you say, and I quote, that it is all indirection and illusion, and it's like watching a movie without a soundtrack. It is sometimes dramatic and exciting, but oftentimes bewildering and boring. But it's a book that I love, yeah, Wolf Hall.
Okay.
And so you don't believe that style is substance? It is her style. She would be like everybody else if she didn't adopt her own style.
Well, I don't think that's any justification. I think that as writers, our first duty is to communicate our meaning. And, well, tell me if you agree with this. Reading Wolf Hall, a lot of the time you don't know what she means.
It did take a long time, I'll admit, but...
Okay, that's half agreeing with me. So, and I realise, of course, that every writer has a different approach. And I'm just saying, you know, when I say our duty is communicating, I mean me. I don't say that everybody has to do it the way I do it. It's not a prescription for other people. It's what I think it's all about.
But as a serious reader, I want to be challenged. I don't want to be lazy and have it all handed to me so easy. I think it depends on what kind of reader you are.
And I think also the same reader may be in a mood for different things at different times. And there are times when you're in a mood for something that you might want to sit back and think about, and at other times you're in a mood for something you race through. And there's room for all of us. There's room for all of us. But I have talked to a lot of people about Wolf Hall, including some of my friends who are much cleverer than me, and a lot of people didn't finish it. A lot of people were taken with it at the beginning, and then just eventually got fed up with not knowing what was going on and thought and put it down before they got to the end. You read it all the way to the end?
I read it all the way.
Yeah, well.
But yes, it needed a lot of stamina.
Okay.
But when we come back after a short break, Ken Follett will tell us what his influences are and also about him playing the bass guitar. After a short break only on Off the Record.